Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining in once again. This is Gasification India 2021 Waste to Energy Technical Sessions. The next session is Waste to Energy Development, Managing Risk and Challenges and Identifying Opportunities. It's an honor and a privilege to invite Mr. J. Gladstone Evans, Deputy General Manager, Avangard Systems and Controls, along with Mr. Abhay Kantak, Director, Urban Practice, Crystal Risk and Infrastructure Solutions Limited. I'll request both the gentlemen to join me up and we can start this session. Mr. Evans, Mr. Kantak, the stage is all yours.
First, can I start?
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'll share my slides.
So in the meantime, Mr. Evans is sharing the slides. Let me quickly give you a context. This session focuses on analyzing the risks to manage it with the operational challenges and identify opportunities from current WTE market boom across the countries and the continents. Mr. Evans, I can see the screen now.
Yeah. So, yeah, very good afternoon to one and all present in this virtual seminar. So, I thank the Mission Energy Foundation for giving us an wonderful opportunity to share our experience, especially with respect to the waste to energy projects. So here, this waste to energy means it's a very general term, any type of waste converting to any type of energy. But I will focus mainly on converting that is from municipal solid waste to power using the direct mass incineration route. So before entering into the technical presentation, I would like to give a brief introduction of our company. One is we are Avangard engineers and consultants, and we have Avangard systems and controls, two concerns where we do our consultancy and detail engineering projects for the Indian industries. Then we have Avangard engineers and consultants FSRC at Sharjah, where we do consultancy and detail engineering services for abroad projects. So we started our business in 1990, and now we are in 2020. We have completed 30 years of our services. Then these four are our founder directors. They are from BHEL. They have a good experience in power field. They left BHEL maybe long back, and they have started this organization. And they all are of high technical. They have high technical skills, and we are ISO 9001 2015 certified, and we are also accredited by the Consultancy Development Center. And we are the only one consultants in India who have the S stamp. And then we have around 200 plus professionals, and we have various departments to handle the complete project, right from the initial stage till the commissioning and even operation of the power plants. And we have around, we have done more than 2,000 projects, and our client, we have around 500 clients. This shows that most of our projects are of repeated projects. And we have done projects in almost 40 countries across the world. And our main area of business is the power plants, mainly cogeneration plant, independent power plants, captive power plants, biomass, then MSW-based power plants, the waste heat recovery-based power plants, then gas turbine-based power plants. Then we do boiler design and detail engineering projects also, mainly grade FAD, ABC, even waste to energy boilers, waste heat recovery boilers. Then we supply certain critical equipments for the boiler components. And we do energy audits for power plants, boiler revamping, capacity upgradations. Then we do consultancy for the sugar plants, and we do consultancy for bio-CNG plants. Similarly, distillery and ethanol plants. Then wastewater treatment and EZLD plants also. And recently we have entered into consultancy services for various chemical plants also. So these are our overall power plant experiences. We have commissioned almost a cumulative capacity of around 6,800 megawatt of power, and around 3,000 megawatt of power is under various stages of implementation. And I would like to highlight that this MSW based incineration plants, we have commissioned 3 plants of cumulative capacity 57 megawatt, and 8 plants are under various stages of implementation with a cumulative capacity of 109, and our total capacity is of around 166 megawatt. So 11 plants we have completed as of now. Then apart from that, other incineration, this is slab-fired incineration projects, mainly industrial waste incineration. Then distillery plant and sugar plants, also various things we have completed. Then specific to the MSW based projects, 6 megawatt RDF based power plant has been commissioned in Andhra Pradesh. Then 24 megawatt plant we have done in Delhi for Ramki. It is 1200 TPD generating 24 megawatt of power. Similarly, Hyderabad MSW, high MSW, it is around 27 megawatt with 1200 TPD. It has been commissioned and it is operating for past 1 year. And this Delhi plant is commissioned in 2016. And 13 megawatt waste to energy 750 TPD plant is under erection at Pune. Similarly, 8 waste heat recovery projects are under commissioning. Then recently we have commissioned a landfill gas project. That is from landfill gas you produce bio-CNG of 1,200 normal meter cube per hour capacity, which is one of the India's biggest and first of its kind in the world. And for leachate treatment, we have done around for these 2 projects, Delhi and Hyderabad plant. We have done the leachate treatment plant also of 200 KLPD capacity. And this is the first landfill-based bio-CNG plant which we have recently commissioned in Hyderabad. Then I will in this presentation I will concentrate mainly on direct mass incineration technology. So here there's some certain data I have collected from the net. See, we have around 62 million tons per annum is the total waste generation, municipal solid waste generation in India. And the projection is around 100 million tons per annum is what the prediction for 2021 as per MOUH, that is Ministry of Human Resource Urban Affairs, and MOEFCC, that is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. They have predicted that in 2021 almost 100 million tons per annum of waste will be produced in India. So with this 62 million tons is almost around 2016 prediction, and that is it amounts to 1.7 lakhs tons per day of waste is generated. Around that 90% of the waste is collected and remaining 10% of the waste is not collected. So from the collected waste, almost 20% of the waste is used for various conversion technologies, and 80% of the waste is dumped in the open yard. This is the current scenario. So the power generation potential almost from this 56, that is 90% of waste collected, you have an average power generation potential of around 2000 megawatt of power as can be produced. The present level of power generation in India is less than 150 megawatt. Then other waste, you have e-waste, biomedical waste and hazardous waste, which we are not covering in this report. So the various technology that is followed for the waste to energy conversion technology broadly can be classified into 2. One is biological processing technology, and second is a thermal conversion technology. So biological processing technology is mainly of composting, biomethanization, etc. And I will be concentrating on the thermal conversion technology. In that, you have incineration, gasification, pyrolysis, and pelletization. So incineration is normally used for a mixed waste, for any type of waste, whether it is a dry waste or wet waste or a combination of waste. This incineration is applicable. And gasification and pyrolysis are normally used for dry waste. And pelletization also, the dry waste you convert into pellets, further process it, and then you can use it in the conventional boiler for certain percentages. Then how to select a technology, that is very important when you go for the waste to energy technology. One is the technology what you select should be flexible because of the wide change in the MSW quality. See, if you see the calorific value or quality or composition of the MSW, there is a wide variation in that. See, in the market waste, the calorific value compositions are different. In industrial, like in shopping complex, the nature is different. In household, the nature is different. So this technology, what you select, should be flexible enough to handle such a wide variety of calorific value of MSWs. And the technology should be a proven technology, and it should be available in house. Then sufficient expertise in operation and maintenance should be available in house. Then another important thing is the environment pollution norm should be should be met in terms of solid waste, sorry, in the solid disposal or the gaseous pollution. So it should meet the environmental norms. Then it should meet the contractual targets and also energy recovery and overall economics. So all these factors have to be analyzed before technology selection. So based on this analysis, one of the very profitable and proven technology is the incineration technology. So incineration is nothing but it's a burning. It's a controlled burning of the waste, that is municipal solid waste, and by means of burning, you generate heat or power out of it. So that is the incineration combined with waste heat recovery. So in this incineration, there are two types of process. One, you can incinerate the waste as received. So you take the waste from the collection lorries or something, or vessels, directly dump it to the plant site, and then you fire it in the incineration and generate power out of it. So there is no uh, pre-treatment system involved in this. So second one is burning a pre-treated waste. Suppose when you have a integrated waste to energy plant where you have a composting also. So biocomposting requires a wet waste. So you do a pre-treatment system, then this segregate the wet waste and the dry waste, and the using the dry waste, you go for a burn it in the incineration and produce power out of it. So that is the pre-treated waste. So advantages of incineration plant: one, so it address various types of pollution, is three sets of pollution issues in one stroke. That is mainly pollution due to open dumping, then effective land utilization, then
I would
environment.
like to I would like to interrupt you, Gladstone.
Yeah, tell me, sir.
Your slide deck is just showing slide. It's not in the presentation mode.
Mm,
Can you click the presentation mode?
yeah, in fact, for me, it is in a presentation mode only.
Can you just
Maybe I
refresh?
will stop and start again.
Yeah, refresh your screen.
Yeah. You're able to see, sir?
Yes, Mr. Evans. Now it's visible. Thank you.
Yeah. So the advantages of incineration is what I was discussing. One, it addresses three types of pollution problems. One is pollution due to open but dumping. Then large area which for open dumping that can be saved by using incineration plants. Then environmental impacts because of the fossil power plants. Then volume reduction, almost 80 to 90% of the volume can be reduced by going for incineration plant. Only a very small disposal area is required. Then waste reduction and destruction is immediate. It doesn't take a long time. Immediately you dump it, then put it in the boiler and then produce power out of it. It is reduction is immediate. No foul smell or infections to the public. So the whole complex is maintained in a negative atmosphere, so that there is no smell which comes outside. Then incineration is it carried out at the generation site itself. Then gas discharge can be well controlled to the permissible norms as per Indian norms, but even we follow more stringent European norms also. Then as residue is usually do not protrude, so it is sterile and inert. Then investment cost can be offset by heat recovery and sale of energy. So these are the various advantages in the incineration plants. So in incineration, there are three types of technology. One is moving rate technology, which is 90% of the technology is using with the moving rate. And you have fluidized bed boiler technology, where this technology can be used, but you cannot use it for the direct dumping of the waste. When you segregate the waste with the and convert RDF and make RDF into a particular size, then this fluidized bed technology can be used. Mainly, this is used for co-firing in a power plant where they use for coal. Some certain percentage can be offset by using RDF in the fluidized bed boiler. But 100% of firing of RDF in the fluidized bed boiler is not very successful. Then you have rotary kiln technology that mainly used for the hazardous or hospital waste incineration. So in this waste to energy system, you have mainly is divided into three sections. One is the waste delivery section. Then you have the incineration section, and you have the gas cleaning section. One is in the waste delivery section, the vehicle. If you see, the vehicle comes and it discharges the waste in the pit, and from the pit will be designed for normally 5 to 10 days storage, and frequently this waste is being mixed using the grab inside the pit, and it will be conveyed into the boiler. So that forms the waste delivery section. Then you have the incineration and energy recovery section, where the waste which is burned inside, in this the water is converted into steam, the energy is required, and from that you generate power out of it. Then third, that is not sufficient, because the whatever waste gas which comes out of the incineration plant is highly pollutant, like it has SOx, NOx, dioxins, furans, pathogens. So many impurities are available in the plant, that we have to purify it, and you have to by means of certain equipments, and then let the gas outside the chimney, which is in a form which is acceptable to the pollution standards. So these are the various sections in a waste to energy boiler. And in this, the waste to energy pit is one of the important area which serves it is one of the critical area in the waste to energy plant. First one, it reduces the surface moisture, because the waste to energy, since you are dumping assets into the pit, it has a lot of moisture in it. Especially during monsoon seasons also, the acquired moisture will be more. So by storing it for around 5 to 10 days, the moisture will be collected in the pit. That is one function. So that when the moisture is collected, the calorific value of the MSW becomes high. Second is to homogenize the incoming MSW, because it it comes from various places, various composition, various nature, various characteristics. By storing it into the pit and mixing it continuously, so the more or less the MSW becomes homogeneous in nature. Then to remove large debris and inerts, and since we are not processing the waste, the sizes will be of any size, maybe bigger lumps, even a plastic chair or something comes in directly into this, so which can be removed by using the crane. Then 4, it increases the heating value of the fuel. Since you are mixing it and you are removing the moisture, removing the inerts, high volume, higher size inerts, the calorific value, ultimately the calorific value of the MSW is increased. Then also it creates a buffer to reduce the fuel fluctuations. So by doing this various things in the pit, this activity itself comes under the classification, the fuel comes under the classification of the RDF as per ASTM classification. Because you are reducing the moisture, you are making the fuel reasonably homogeneous, removing the large debris, and maintaining reasonably uniform calorific value. So the fuel ultimately get classified under RDF as per ASTM standards. So external separation is not required. Then by removing this moisture, the calorific value increases, the boiler efficiency increases, your steam generation increases, and ultimately your power output increases. So this graph approximately shows that the if by 5% moisture reduction, there is an increase in calorific value of around 80, and there is an increase of boiler percentage efficiency by around 1%. So this graph will be useful for us to decide what is the moisture collection level and what is the power generation for that particular given input. Then the another important aspect, once you properly store and when you make the calorific value uniform, the another important part of the direct mass incineration is the grate, firing grate. So using the grab, you take the fuel from the pit and then you place it in the hopper. Then through the hopper, by means of this ram feeder, you push the fuel into the grate. So air is given from the bottom and the fuel burns and produce heat. The temperature inside will be around 1000 degrees. And since the temperature is high, you recover the temperature by means of circulating water inside the tubes, and the water is converted into steam. So this technology, the selection of this grate, is one of the major critical aspects in the waste to energy boiler. And one of the major cost incurred is also the grate. So then the burning and leaving as such doesn't help because the economics will not work out. So you have to recover the energy. So what we do, we go for a energy recovery system where the water is converted into steam. For example, this is the first is the steam generator where water is converted into steam, and from 3 to 4 the steam is expanded into the turbine, and coupling with the generator, it will generate the power out of it. Then you condense the steam by means of either water cooled condenser or air cooled condenser, and then condense it and then again circulate the water. So this becomes a cyclic process wherein the heat energy from the fuel is absorbed and it is converted into power. Then when you generate the power, when the heat is generated, so the water can be converted into steam at various pressure levels. We all know that as the pressure level increases, and when the pressure level correspondingly temperature is increased, and your power generation will be more. For example, when you from 1 ton of steam, when the pressure and temperature is around 360, you can generate 215 kilowatt. When it is 445, 440, it is 235. There is an increase in power output, and so on. So as the pressure and temperature increases, the power output also increases. But in case of waste to energy plant, even though that is real, we go with the 45 at 400 degrees centigrade because of the nature of the fuel and because of the availability, non-availability of certain equipments in-house in India. So we restrict to 45 at and 400 degree presently. Maybe in future, in another few years, even in our plans, we are trying to increase the pressure and temperature to the next higher level, which calls for certain equipments, additional equipments to be imported. We are working out the cost benefit analysis for that. So mostly we will try to implement the higher pressure and high temperature cycles for our further projects. Then how do you select the capacity of the steam generator? Mainly it depends on the capacity of the power generation. For example, if you want to fire more fuel, the capacity will be more, and you can go for a higher pressure and temperature. Similarly, type of power plant under consideration, and mainly for this plant, it is based on the fuel and ash, nature of the fuel and ash of the MSW. Then another aspect which is taken into account is the limitation in the technology followed. And another aspect is because of that, the investment and cost economics. Then number of operation unit. These are the various factors that are considered when you select the boiler parameters. So here I have given a comparison between a conventional fuel and a municipal solid waste. The numbers which I have highlighted in red, like sodium oxide, potassium oxide, SO3. So this contributes to the fouling aspects in the boiler. See, more this composition of sodium and potassium salts, the ash gets stuck into the superheater, into the heat transfer coils, and it blocks. So it's difficult to go for when this fouling tendency or slagging tendency increases when you go for higher pressure and temperature. So to reduce that, you require certain special metallurgy to be followed. Another aspect is the chlorine and the initial deformation temperature of the ash, because at lower temperature itself the ash will melt. So whereas if you see in Indian coal, bagas or rice husk, these temperatures are more than 1000 degrees, whereas here it is around 700 or 800 degrees centigrade. And this is a typical heat and mass balance which we have prepared for a 750 TPD plant. So it is 2 into 35 TPH boilers, 45 atta and 400 degrees centigrade is the pressure and temperature we have selected. And the power output varies from 9 megawatt to 13 megawatt, because during summer season the calorific value will be higher, during winter season the calorific value will be lower. So the equipment what you select should cater to the lower calorific value operation and also the higher calorific value operation. So the equipments are normally selected on a higher size because to cater the upset conditions also. Then the emission standard based on our Indian SWN 2016 rules, I have listed it out. 50 mg is particulate, 400 NOx, 200 SOx, HCl 50. But even though these are the pollution norms which Indian government has regulated, we normally follow the international standards, more stringent, so that at future, maybe in any it's a period of time, we will also follow the we are planning to shift to these international standards. But certain aspect, even Indian standard is more stringent than the international standard. For that we follow the Indian standard. So the gas cleaning and disposal system, the following are involved. One, the MSW 2016 rule says that the furnace temperature has to be maintained as 950 degree, whereas the international standards calls for only 850 degrees centigrade, and residence time minimum 2 seconds. So this Indian standard is more stringent and we follow that. Then for NOx, we go for SCR or SNCR. Mostly SNCR system itself is sufficient. Then HCl and SOx. This is we go for a flue gas reactor system. It can be either dry type or semi-dry type. Then activated for heavy metals, we go for activated carbon injection system, and for particulate, we go for the dust, back filter system. So for the SOx and NOx, we have semi-dry and dry. Both the systems are followed. In semi-dry, your water consumption is more. But recently, we have we have in one of our plant, we have gone for a leach treatment system, and the condensate, the water is recovered from the leach treatment, and that condensate is used for the as a liquid in for this purpose. So thereby you can use the waste from the leach treatment system and you can effectively utilize that. Whereas in dry system, it is completely dry. The requirement of water is not envisaged. Then another area is the ash collection and disposal. There are various collection areas. One mainly at the grate. Almost 80% of the ash is collected in the grate, and the remaining 20% is a fly ash, which is connected at the downstream of the boilers. So this we take it and then either dump it directly in the dump yard, or we treat it further and then convert into certain products like these tiles, low load bearing tiles, mainly for the road pavements or from such type of application for road construction, pavement, landfill cover, cement block production, and to filling in low lane area. For these purposes, this ash can be used. Then the leachate, another important area is the leachate. So leachate cannot be disposed as such outside. So we are following a leachate treatment system. One is leachate concentration plant. We have installed this plant. You concentrate into around 30 to 40% level, and the concentrated product is again put back into the pit, and then again put it into the boiler and then fire it and produce power out of it. And the condensate, the which is recovered from that, you spray it in the spray reactor, and it is disposed in that way. Then there is another biological treatment followed by RO system, wherein biogas can be generated and you can generate power out of it. So this is another system. So this is one of the leachate concentration plant which we have installed in two of our installations. Then waste to energy configuration, whether to go for a one boiler configuration or two boiler configuration, three boiler configuration, depends on the capacity. So if it is less than 850 TPD, we can go for one boiler, 1 TG configuration. But one of the disadvantage in going for one boiler, 1 TG is that once in 3 months, you have to shut down the boiler for cleaning. So at that particular time, you cannot dispose the waste. So the whole plant will be under shutdown. So when we go for two boiler, 2 TG configurations, the boiler can be planned in a staggered way so that at least 50% of the capacity will be available to dispose your waste. Similarly, if you go for more than 1,200 TPD, we can go for 3 boiler and 1 TG configurations. And 2 boiler, 2 TG, people normally don't go, but you can in certain abroad countries, they go for this 2 boiler, 2 TG configuration also. Then these are the power generation from the waste to energy plant. Roughly, when from 300 TPD plant, you can generate 4 to 6 megawatt of power, depending on the calorific value. From 450 TPD, 6 to 8 megawatt, 600 TPD, 8 to 12 megawatt, 750 TPD, 10 to 14 megawatt. So these are the combination of either people go for 1 into 750 or 2 into 600, or so normally these are repeated in multiples of these capacities. So these are some of the world's largest waste to energy plant across the one in China, 5,000 TPD. then 5,500 TPD in Dubai, which are under implementation. And these are few waste to energy plant across the world. And these are some of the waste to energy plant which is available in India. In this, the right side plant is for Ramki, which we have done under our consultancy, which is operating from 2016 onwards, generating around 25 maximum of 25 megawatt of power. Then the megawatt varies depending on the input quantity and the calorific value of the waste. And this is the project which we are commissioned in Hyderabad 1 year ago. And this is also generating around 27 megawatt of power, because the calorific value of Hyderabad is slightly better when compared to Delhi. And in this plant, we have achieved almost around 10% auxiliary power consumption, because our initial prediction was around 15%. We are able to achieve 10% by using latest technologies and with providing VFDs for most of the equipments. So this is operating screenshot of this plants. So summarizing this, so MS Municipal Solid Waste, we can tell, is a new beginning for a very old source. So this direct mass incineration with energy recovery is one of the best waste to energy technology suitable for wide varying fuel like MSW and for effective disposal of the waste. So internationally, there are more than 1,000 waste to energy plants under DMI technology is in operation worldwide. In India, almost 4 plants are in successful operation, and various plants are under verge of commissioning. So in the incineration technology, there is a volume reduction, as I discussed, around 90%. And the gases are let out satisfying the pollution norms. And all the ash can be treated and safely it can be disposed. And the power generation potential is around 270 kilowatt to 445 kilowatt per TPH of MSW, depending on the calorific value of the waste. So with the tipping fees and with the capital subsidiary from the government which is available, and by exporting power, which is around 7 rupees per unit, this technology, waste to energy technology, becomes viable with a payback less than 5 years. So with this, I'm concluding my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Can I please request Mr. Kantak to join us on the main screen and start his presentation? Mr. Abhay Kantak, the stage is all yours. We'd be very happy for you to start your presentation now.
Thanks, Ravin. Just a minute. I'll just share my presentation.
Sure, sir. In the meantime, I would like to thank Mr. Evans for that wonderful presentation. We might have some questions after Mr. Kantak's presentation. If you have any questions, the audience, please make sure that you go to the chat box and let us know. We'll be very happy to post the questions in front of our speakers and take it forward from there.
Ravin, just one moment on this answer.
Sure, sir.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, I can.
And once I change the slides, can you see the slides are changing? Are the
Yes,
slides changing? Yeah, great.
I'll request you to put this in play mode so that, yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. Please go ahead. Thank you.
is it fine now?
Absolutely, sir.
One moment. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this presentation. And the topic for the session is managing risks and challenges in waste to energy development. And thank Mr. Evans for making a very good technical presentation. And the subject matter is similar, so it's a good thing that we are extending this discussion to municipal solid waste. Uh, from what I gather from talking to experts like Mr. Evans, that the technical challenges, there are solutions which can meet the requirement of scientific disposal of municipal solid waste. But there are other risks which impact businesses, be it the urban infrastructure sector or any other sector, and that is influenced by the regulatory environment, the institutional framework, and the financing part. And that is something which is something that I want to talk about, not on the operational side, more on the policy and the regulatory perspective. So, what is the current status of municipal solid waste? So, I'm on slide 2 now, which has a title "Current Status." I hope everybody can see that. Please do let me know if the slides are not changing for any reason. So, yeah. So, most cities in India do not have a disposal facility for municipal solid waste, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that 99% are not doing it well. And what they do is dumping, and dumping is equated with disposal. And given the years and decades of neglect, waste to energy is seen as a quick fire way to dispose of the waste. And the promise that the energy generated will pay for the disposal costs and will be self financing is something that everybody city looks at. And given the precarious financial position, this looks like a great option to move to. And then there is a focus that for looking at energy generation, and that's the entire objective. And waste disposal doesn't seem to be the focus area. There was a committee that was constituted by the government, the Kasturi Rangan committee, and they talked about if all the waste that is generated in the country, if you are able to generate electricity out of it, it will be not more than 500 or 600 megawatts, or maybe can be maybe higher. So waste generation or energy generation from municipal waste, is not an objective. Rather, the municipal waste that piles up at dumping site, how do you dispose of? That should be the focus of the discussion. I'm on slide 3 now. The title is Institutional Legal Framework for MSW Services, and in the entire urban infrastructure space, there is always a challenge of multiple jurisdictions. And what we have in at least in municipal solid waste, that it's an exclusive domain of the urban local bodies. They are responsible for collection, transportation, and disposal of municipal waste. And this is true for all local bodies in the country. And that may not be true for water, wastewater, because some local bodies do not deal with water or wastewater. It's parastatal, governed by the state government, which provides this. But this is definitely in our case that we are discussing today. This is an exclusive domain of the urban local bodies. Uh, Given the multiplicity of local bodies, and probably every city cannot have a disposal site on its own, and probably we'll have to look at some regional facilities so that some large cities with small cities together can generate the economies of scale. and that may require that the land that is required for the disposal site may be outside the local body jurisdiction, and that is where the role of the state government comes into play to provide or to facilitate such a arrangement. The other aspect that we need to look at is, provision of solid waste management services is looked at as an obligatory function of the local bodies, and for which they charge property tax and other charges. But somehow there is no service charge for HWN services, and through the solid waste management rules, which have been drafted, provide for solid waste management charges to be levied, but it is the municipal acts that need to be amended in every state to allow for this charge to be levied. There is some form of the other this charge is there, but it is not universal and it is not adequate at all. For general statement would not, which is not incorrect, is that you need to amend the municipal acts to levy for solid waste management services, or there is a policy decision that you take that you will not charge for solid waste management services, and then you find alternate ways of financing. So, another emphasis that I want to talk about, that waste disposal should be the priority. Energy generation is an offshoot or an outcome of that activity. How do we dispose of waste in a very environmentally friendly way is something that should be the focus of this of this activity. No, collection and transportation is being done by the city government in every city. Either they do it on their own, they have some private contractors to do it. But disposal is an activity which is, technology intensive, skill intensive, which is not there with the local bodies. And probably that is one area where PPP is more amenable, given that between the private sector and the public sector, the private sector can scale up capacity much faster than what the public sector can do. And the legal framework should allow and facilitate the PPP project development. And there are some states or the existing regulatory framework probably sometimes is not so adequate. There's something that I also want to dispel. That financing is a challenge, but in my view, it is not a challenge that cannot be surmounted. I would take a larger view that today in the country there is an institutional deficit, not a financing deficit, and I would come to that to that point later. But let me talk on the financing, challenge. So, finally, there is money that is available, with the city that can be provided for solid waste management services, and that money is coming from multiple sources. Some are internal sources, and some are external sources. Now, there is it is not it is not disputed that the revenue generation capacity or the revenues available to the local bodies are not adequate to meet their commensurate obligation. So, if I were to just give you some, macro numbers, typical revenue of a local body would be around 2,000 rupees per capita. But if we had to meet its expenditure obligations, it would be around requirement would be around 6,000 to 7,000 rupees per capita, and this is not counting urban transport, but the basic services, water, sewerage, solid waste management, street lighting. These services have to be covered, and you require that kind of revenues. And why the revenues are not adequate, there are multiple reasons for that, and probably there is no quick fix solution to that, and that requires a huge overhaul of the financing mechanisms, and that probably requires a much larger discussion and debate. But given those circumstances, which will take time to heal, but there is a current revenue source which is available to the local bodies, which can probably be utilized. And where I'm talking about is the devolutions that happen from the central government or the Central Finance Commission devolutions. And I'm just giving you a number that 488 rupees per capita was the number that was funding was devolved to the local bodies from the central government under the 14th Finance Commission. That's the period from 2014 to 2015. And the current 15th Finance Commission recommendations have increased that number, and where but there is some difference where they have made some allocations to for different services. But the larger point that is I want to emphasize here, that there is a money flow that is available at the city level, which can be utilized to achieve a objective. Rather than spending that money for multiple objectives, can we just look at ring fencing this amount and meeting a very fundamental requirement of managing municipal solid waste. And if I were to look at a city population of maybe 2 lakhs population, and looking at a 500 grams per capita as the per capita waste generation, and look at a collection and disposal cost of 2,500, can go to 3,000, maybe 2,500 is my view should be a reasonable number. And the annual costs are close to 9 crores per annum for this activity, and the per capita cost is 456 rupees per capita. And if you look at the per capita devolution that is happens at a city level, it's around 488. So there is a financing. It's just that how do you channelize that money that you can be looked at. So what is the bigger problem that we have? The challenge is institutional coordination, and the state government today has to facilitate this activity of disposal, which probably cannot be left to a local body level, primarily because this is an activity which transcends municipal jurisdictions, and having a cluster approach or a regional landfill sites is something that can be best and can be only facilitated by the state government. And this is a mechanism which is needs to be institutionalized. And typically, when we see in government setups, is that there may be a secretary who is promoting it, but once he changes, somebody else takes over, and there is not much continuity. So this mechanism of having regional landfill sites is something that can be looked for, can be looked at. The development plans that are being prepared for a wider region, the regional development plans can provide for land for such facility, and we can continue to have local governments to be responsible for collection and transportation within their jurisdiction. So this is not something. There are some local governments who have land, and they can probably do it within their jurisdiction itself. But I think looking at a regional landfill site is something which is it's quite it's quite a better option to look at. So what is the key focus that I want to emphasize on is that municipal waste to energy projects should be our waste disposal projects. They are not energy generation projects. When the projects fail, we are not having an energy generation project which is failing. The waste disposal, which is the basic requirement for cities, that needs to be talked about. And the energy generation from municipal waste, it's a last outcome that needs to be looked at. Minimizing waste generation, segregation of waste, material recovery should continue to be the focus. And it's when all these activities have been optimized, then we look at waste to energy is something that should be the focus. And as I emphasize here again, is that financing is not a challenge, and it is the direction of institutional orientation is the biggest challenge. And if you look at the take a much larger perspective of urban management in the country, and I think things have been bad, and things have been not incorrect to say things have failed. I would consider there are good failures and bad failures. And today, when an agency which is not responsible, not accountable, and legitimately not should not be doing that activity. And if it does that activity and fails, in my view, there is no learning. And it is the local government when they fail, and when you can ascribe the only reason why the municipal services are not good today is because of local government. I think that's the real failure that we should be looking at, because of that failure, there is learning in that institution, and there is something which is services improve. But what happens in the Indian context, in the urban sector, is that we continue to have the legacy of the British Raj, where the local government is an instrument of control, not an instrument to serve. So unless the bottom of the pyramid, or the bottom of the third tier of government, is fully empowered financially, technically, administratively, and given the autonomy to provide services, the state government intervention is always going to be suboptimal, and it's going to impact the provision of services. And this is true not just for solid municipal solid waste, but it's also true for all kinds of urban services. Nowhere in the world we find so much intervention of the state and the center in providing, in being controlling the way urban services are provided. We're preparing smart city vision, or making our city smart, is not a vision for the prime minister. It is a vision for the local government to have. And we cannot have an administration which is, where the commissioner is answering the state government but not accountable to the local government. So keeping the entire regulatory policy and the institutional orientation in India, municipal infrastructure projects will always face challenge of financial sustainability, and the private sector will always be shy away from such projects. And finally, getting the institutional orientation and the policy orientation right is key to making that ease of doing business with local bodies in India. So with this, I want to end the presentation, just to focus more on the institutional policy and the regulatory risks that the urban infrastructure services face. And there's something also that I want to emphasize, that the urban infrastructure services are natural monopolies, and they required a different kind of treatment. So with this, I end my presentation. I would look forward to your comments, suggestions, and any questions on this. Thank you very much.
Um, so there's a question here on the screen. Mr. Evans, Mr. Kanta, whoever would like to go and answer this one first.
Sorry, I'm not able to see the question. Yeah.
Can you see it on screen now, sir?
Can you throw some light on the damage observed in the installed pilot plant? See, coming to I do not know that my topic, what I have presented is a direct mass incineration plant. It is not a pilot plant. So it is an actual commercial plant which is in operation. Maybe Delhi, which was 25 megawatt, and Hyderabad, that is a 27 megawatt. See, damage, I do not know what you mean by that. See, we faced some challenges during initial stage commissioning and during first years of operation. Like, see, the what should I say? Like tube failures in the superheaters, which made the plant to shut down for a few days. Then that has been rectified. We have changed certain designs, then certain equipment we have introduced. And now if you see this, after that 1 year after struggle, now the plant is operating smoothly without any issues. And whatever experience we had in Delhi plant, we have incorporated in the design stage in the Hyderabad plant. And till now the Hyderabad plant, from right from the commissioning, it is operating smoothly without any issues and generating the power based on the calorific value of the fuel. Maybe if any specific thing, if you would like to know, maybe we will discuss. Otherwise, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Evans. Thank you so much, Mr. Kantak, for being here with us on Gasification India 2021. Thank you once again for your valuable time. We truly appreciate it. I have another question before we bid you goodbye, and I'll request Mr. Evans or Mr. Kantak to take this.
Request your perspective on feedstock security cost in MSW-based bio-CNG plant. Anyway, this see, I do not know much technically about the bio-CNG plant because my strength is the incineration plant. So from Avantgarde, we have executed this particular project. So if you want any more technical on this particular thing, maybe you can contact me. I think in my slide, the contact person list is there. We will discuss in detail. Maybe if you can, we'll connect to the concerned person from our office and we will discuss. Otherwise, this is basically from the landfill by providing certain wells and interconnecting it, taking the gas, and then we have compressed it and produced the bio-CNG. This is the overall aspect. If you want any specific thing, maybe we will discuss that separately.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Evans. Once again, Mr. Kantak, for being here with us. We truly appreciate your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of the session. And once again, I would like to express our gratitude to both the speakers for being there. And with that, we would like to take a lunch break for 1 hour. We'll be joining back at 2 o'clock. And then the next technical session will be about technological pathways to leverage the carbon-based inputs to advanced biofuels and bio-based chemicals. So join us for that at sharp 2. Thank you so much once again for being a part of Gasification India 2021. My name is Ravin, and I'll see you on the other side.